We're here to protest against Maximus. Maximus have been done for a multi-million-pound fraud in the United States. Despite that, they have been employed by the Tories to get people off their benefits. People have died because of the decisions of Maximus. We must get them out of Scotland. Stand up for Scotland. Get rid of Maximus.
Right. My name is Sean Clerkin, and I've been campaigning against Atos and now Maximus for the last 3 years, along with the rest of the people here have been doing it. And why have we been doing it? Very simply, 7,300 people have died after they were put back in the work activity related group. People who are terminally ill. People like Eleanor Tartan, a mother, 38 years of age, passed fit to work by Atos and died 5 weeks later from a brain tumour. People like Mark Wood, who was passed fit to work and died weighing 5 stone 6 pounds, who died of starvation down south of the border because he was passed fit to work by Atos. And now we have the situation of Michael O'Sullivan, a man who suffered from mental illness all his life, and the coroner and the coroner's court, part of the judicial establishment here in the UK, said that his death was directly attributable to the work capability assessment. His suicide was directly caused by those people over there doing the work capability assessment. And she also went on to say that more deaths will occur unless the work capability assessment is changed. Well, we do not want the work capability assessment changed. We want it completely abolished. Completely abolished. We want disabled and sick people and dying people to be able to get an adequate social security, to live comfortably, to live in dignity, and to live in security without them having to fear where their next meal will come from, wherever their next house will come from, and that they'll be put out on the streets. We do not want that kind of society here in Britain in the 21st century. And above all, Maximus, Sailors, Atos, Trier Central, they make over £1 billion a year from the misery, driving people to suicide, driving terminally ill people into misery and dying prematurely, driving the sick and the disabled into severe stress and fear for their lives. What kind of society does that to its people? And we know who does it. The Tories. That 4-letter word called the Tories. Those bastards at Westminster, David Cameron and the rest Osborne, who basically are driving the sick, the disabled, the poor and the working class into premature graves. These are financial robber barons. These companies and the Tories, they are financial rapists who rape money off the poor and destroy the little dignity they have left in their lives. It's an absolute disgrace that happens. These people over here are contract killers. That's what Maximus and Atos are. Contract killers who are killing the poor, the sick, the disabled, the working class. Just you think as you pass by in the street today, if you lose your job tomorrow, you could be sanctioned. You could be next. Think of a person like Philip Malloy, who was working, lost his job, was sanctioned, lost his house, and threw himself into the River Clyde in March of this year. 28 years of age, and he committed suicide because he had no hope left, because these people over here do the dirty, take people off their benefits. Do you know that Maximus
sacked 25 of their nurses recently because they didn't get enough disabled people back to work. They fired them. What kind of company is that who are forcing the sick and the disabled into the misery of poverty? It is absolutely sickening, and it must stop now. We must fight back, and the only way to do that is to fight street by street and cause by cause. And what we need at the end is an independent Scotland, a socialist Scotland, where we have redistribution of income and wealth, where we have social justice, where they're young, are old, are disabled, are sick, are poor, are not poor any longer, where they can get £10 an hour with the work and can get just social security through their lives to live a life of dignity and peace and justice.
This is Sarah Glynn from the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network, and I want to say a few words about another aspect of this vicious system, and that when people are judged whether they're fit to work, as well as doing the so-called medical assessment, they can provide evidence from their doctors, but very many doctors are not providing that evidence. Because we've got an increasingly commercialised system, GP surgeries are run as private businesses, and many of those private businesses will not give people their own medical records without charging them for it. And these are people who have no money, and so they can not get that evidence. They can't pay that charge, they can't produce that evidence. And very often, Maximus will not ask for that evidence. The DWP will not ask for that evidence. So people are being judged without the evidence they need because doctors' surgeries are being run as businesses. And this is shameful. This is something we're going to draw attention to. This is something we want to discuss with the Scottish Government about. And this is something that must end. Thank you.
Disabled people want to work, to study, to volunteer, to participate and contribute, but are all too often prevented by the social, physical, attitudinal and economic barriers. The removal of these barriers to participation will enable disabled people to lead their lives to the full as they choose, just like anyone else. But instead of the removal of these barriers, disabled people are experiencing an inhumane, never-ending, error-ridden assessment regime whose foundations were laid by the last Labour government, who introduced the demeaning and humiliating work capability assessments that have seen hundreds of thousands of people pushed further into poverty and severe financial hardship, and shockingly seen thousands of people dying within weeks of being passed fit to work. And to add insult to injury, this has all been done for profit by companies like Maximus and Atos. This has been justified by media coverage that stigmatises and demonises disabled people, people receiving benefits and people living in poverty as fraudsters, cheats and scroungers who are a burden and a drain on society. Is that how we value people in 21st century Scotland? I don't think so. No one is a burden. People matter. They're our greatest asset. If you think the last 5 years of cuts have been bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. We have only seen the tip of the iceberg. What we're getting is austerity max. That's why we must build a broad social movement with one unifying common purpose. No more austerity. Thank you.
What we're here saying today is that there's £12 billion worth of cuts to be made, which don't need to be made. All we have to do is tax the rich, tax the powerful companies, and allow the people with benefits to have more benefits, to live their lives in comfort, especially the sick, the disabled, and the dying. These are the people that need to live their lives. People that are being allowed to die in an uncivilized society. Britain is the fourth most unequal society in the world. It is an absolute scandal that the rich and powerful can do what the hell they like, and the poor and the sick get penalised for being poor. They're demonised as scroungers, they're demonised as being work shy, when it is not the case. If people want to work, they should be allowed to work for a living wage of £10 an hour. That's what should happen. And the sick and the disabled and the people who cannot work should be allowed to live their lives out in decency and to be able to have a decent social security, a basic social income where they can live comfortably without having to be reassessed time and time again. When they go to the assessors, they're in fear, they're in stress, they're in severe fear of their lives, that they're going to have the little income they have cut off. We must not have that in future. We must have all sick and disabled people living in comfort. But I go back to what Chris actually said. We must build a common front, a popular front, a social front, a social movement that fights this, that defeats this, that actually taxes the big companies and actually taxes the rich and the powerful. That's where the money must go, to tax those people who caused the financial mess to begin with. The bankers, the hedge fund managers, these are the criminals. These are the people that financially raped our system, that put you in vulnerability, that made you be taxed more. These are the people that have to be thinking, not the poor, not the disabled, and not the sick. And as I say, come and join the resistance, the Scottish resistance, DPAC, Black Triangle, the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network. Come and join the working class, making common cause to defeat global capitalism and neoliberalism, which has caused the world we now currently live in.
Hi folks, my name is Ian Kerr from Ayrshire. I'm absolutely proud to be here today, standing alongside these people, not just in defence of those on benefits, not just to the most vulnerable in our society, but as a positive statement of disgust at the entire capitalist, Tory, corporate network and the greed that they represent. There is a cold wind blowing through the housing schemes of Scotland today and for some weeks previously. And that's because people in Scotland understand clearly and unequivocally that these people are coming for our welfare state. This is only one manifestation of that process. If you look at the bedroom tax, the Scottish Anti-Bedroom Tax Federation said clearly and unequivocally, this is an attack on the disabled, but it's also an attack on the principle of social housing. The attack on social housing was part of an overall strategy to roll back the welfare state, and believe me, that's the stakes we're playing for here today. Demonstrations like this are a clear and blatant statement of intent that we will not take this lying down. We will not simply give up and go away. We will defend our welfare state. We will defend the vulnerable in society, and we will fight tooth and nail and with every breath to get rid of the Tories, to get rid of Westminster, and to get rid of the world corporate capitalist greed that they represent. Thanks for listening.
Starting from Glasgow against austerity. We're standing outside Cadogen St. We've been here for about half an hour, 40 minutes. And it's really satisfying in an ironic way that the staff across the road in Cadogen St that undertake their work capability assessment and that are up at their window smiling at us. Because, you know, there's nothing really to smile about being in Cadogen St, about getting a letter through your letterbox telling you you have to attend a work capability assessment. I was talking to a young friend there this week. She's due up for an assessment very soon. She's got arthritis. She's in her 20s. And she was telling me about a friend of hers who's also got arthritis, who's about 24 and is confined to a wheelchair. She spends like 2 months at a time in hospital because she no longer can use her legs. She no longer has use of her legs because of arthritis. She can barely move her fingers. She can just about operate the button on his electric wheelchair. Now these two lassies, and I say lassies, they're in their early 20s, well mid-20s. And I found out a wee bit more about arthritis and how the disability affects people. And I was shocked to hear that if you've got arthritis, you can be on anti-cancer drugs, morphine. And the damage these drugs do to a 20-year-old, 24-year-old body, especially if you're a female, because you're looking at infertility. You're looking at being told you're infertile at 24 years of age. You're sitting in a wheelchair. You cannot use your legs. You cannot use your hands. You're in constant chronic pain. The medication is actually sometimes worse than the actual ailment. And I thought, no, I'm not going to ask my friends if this lassie that's in the wheelchair has been up to Cadogen Street, because you'd have to be insane to put something like that through the work capability assessment. You'd have to be insane to bring them to an interview, a work capability assessment. But I asked anyway, just out of curiosity. And my friend says, yes, she's been up at Cadogen Street. They've all been up at Cadogen Street. I've been up at Cadogen Street about 2-3 times. Just about every disabled person in Glasgow has been up at Cadogen Street. And it's a hateful system that this government's created on the pretext of austerity. Because the work capability assessment's been going since like 2008. That's when I first got my first work capability assessment, 1997, and I failed it. And I had to go to a tribunal. I'd never even been to a tribunal. I knew nothing about tribunals. But I got my benefit back. And I'm a bit older and a bit wiser now. I'm wise to the work capability assessment, which isn't a medical. You know, we've sussed you out. We know this is not a medical, it's no medical bearing. You're interviewing people you've never met before and you'll probably never see again. You're interviewing people you know nothing about. You're interviewing people who see specialists. They've been seeing specialists, some of them for most of their life. Some of them, they've been getting medical treatment from birth. But they all end up here. They all end up at Corona House in front of you muppets. You guys, healthcare professionals that have the cheek to call yourself a healthcare professional. There's nothing caring, there's nothing healthy, and there is nothing whatsoever professional about Cadogen Street and the work capability assessment. And it goes way beyond politics, it goes way beyond what you believe in about politically. This is about humanitarianism. This is about how human are you? How human are you as a human being to sit and take the government's payoff to assess disabled people? Because we've got you sussed. We know what this is about. We know who you are, and we know what you're doing. And we will shut you down. It might take a bit of time. We did it with Atos, and we will do it with Maximus. You're an insidious company. I despise everything Maximus stands for, because you're just profiting on poverty. You're profiting on a government that doesn't have the guts to do their own dirty work, that will employ companies like yours. And we're going to continue coming here. I've been on this picket now for about 3 years. We're going to continue coming here. We'll come in bigger numbers. And if we can't stop you, we're going to shame you, because time's running out for you, Maximus. Everybody knows the dirty work that you do.
Just to say to people here today that I'm standing trial on the 30th of October at Paisley Sheriff Court for breach of the peace. What was my crime? I had a banner up against Atos being a sponsor for the Commonwealth Games, and 4 cops jumped on top of me, and basically I was detained for over 27 hours in two prison cells, over 2 prisons, over 2 days. And the bottom line is, over one day I should say, and the fact is I stand trial for breach of the peace on the 30th of October for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and basically freedom of assembly, and the police just jumped on top of me because I wanted to show a banner to the BBC TV cameras, because these people are the criminals, not the protesters who are protesting for social justice, who are protesting against the work capability assessment that's killed over 14,000 people, killed 7,300 people when they were put back in the work-related activity group, that killed 7,000 people as they were going through the assessment process. These are the criminals, the people inside there. And it's no excuse to say I'm only a worker, I'm only following orders. The Nuremberg principles do not apply. You are guilty. You are guilty of putting people in mass poverty. You are guilty of what you are doing, and that's a fact.
This is the Scottish resistance. We will be standing up for the poor and the disabled against companies like Maximus. They are the merchants of death. Many people have died after getting their benefits stopped by this company. This company have been done for multi-million-pound fraud in the United States of America. Yet the Tories have employed them to cause misery, death and destruction on the Scottish people. Stand up for Scotland. Join the Scottish resistance.
In 2011, I was hit by a hit-and-run driver while cycling on my bike. Not only did I have 3 fractures to my back, trapped my spinal cord, 7 fractures to my left leg, I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't go to the toilet, I couldn't wash, I couldn't dress, and ATOS said I was fit for work. I've had 37 operations. This is as good as I get. I still need help to go to the toilet, I still need help to get dressed, and ATOS said I was fit for work. ATOS and Maximus also make the decisions whether disabled people can take part in workfare. Workfare is where you're expected to work 30 hours a week for 6.5 months to clean toilets in Poundland. This is a shame. If you have a disability or a chronic illness, your doctor or your specialist should make this decision for you. You should never have to go to these shameful work capability assessments. I have friends that have no legs and they've been asked to wiggle their toes in ATOS. If they can't be bothered reading your notes, they shouldn't be taking part in these assessments. If you have no legs and no arms, you cannot lift a box from one side of the room to the other or wiggle your toes in both feet. I was repeatedly asked if I could bend down and pick up a box and take it 3 metres. This is a shame. This is shameful. This is Ian Duncan Smith, who is a contract killer. He contracts these killers who are ATOS and Maximus to do these assessments. This is shameful. No one should have to be degraded so much to attend these assessments. Now, Scotland, we need to get our act together. It's good to protest on Facebook and on Twitter, but unless you attend events like this every month, companies like this are going to hide behind their billions of pounds they get from Ian Duncan Smith. This should not be allowed. This is shameful. We need to get behind all these different organisations. I might not be able to stand with you to protest, but I'll certainly sit with you and protest, because we need to get this stopped. Now come on, let's get attending these events, let's get public, let's get speaking. You should never have to go to these shameful assessments. We are not robots, so why should a computer decide our future. £11 million a year. The NHS and Maximus are getting paid, and so is ATOS to use their computer system. £11 million just to use computer software. So ATOS isn't away. Your paperwork says ATOS. It's ATOS that's on the questionnaire. So don't think, oh good, we get rid of ATOS. They are still in that building. It is ATOS by a different name. Now why don't they take that 11 million and try and help disabled and the chronically ill live instead of just exist or survive? They take away the access to work funding, yet they expect the disabled to work. If you can't get a ramp into your office, you have got no chance. In an instant, I lost my house, my job, my spinal cord, and I gained a wheelchair. And ATOS still declared me fit for work. Took me 2.5 years, absolutely correct, 2.5 years to get my appeal, to get me DLA. Without getting DLA, you don't get home carers, you don't get a bus pass, you don't exist, you're barely living. Food banks should never be the norm. These work capability assessments need to be stopped, and they need to be stopped now. The money is going to the wrong people. You should be going to the disabled, the chronically ill, and not to these companies sitting in their big buildings. Now please get behind these protests, please get involved, contact your MP, your MSPs. This is a shameful company getting profits on the blood, sweat and tears of the disabled, the chronically ill. You may be able to walk past, but you never know what could happen to you in an instant. How long could your money last? How long could your savings last if you were hit by a car like me? Mine's lasted 3 months. 3 months, and then I had no money, no house, nowhere to go. Now you may be able to walk past and go to your work, and I wouldn't wish chronic illness or an injury to anybody, but if you were hit by a car on your way home, what would you do? Would you be here fighting to get your money? Would you hope somebody would be able to fight with you? Probably. Now come on people, let's start fighting against this team. They are wrong, they make incorrect decisions. If you can't answer a question correctly on their questionnaire, you are fit for work. We are not machines, we are not robots, so a computer should never decide how we live. Thanks.
This is the Scottish resistance. It's time to get rid of the Tories. It's time to get rid of Maximus. Stand up for Scotland. Come and join the Scottish resistance. Maximus out! 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 And we're saying that clearly because 7,500 people have died when they were put back in the work activity related group by ATOS and Maximus, and they died before getting to work because they were chronically ill, dying and sick people. And I would say to the chronically sick and the ill, come across the road and join us. Join us in the protest, Mr. Matthews. Come and join us, George. Come and join us across the road here, because you're very welcome. And we're here today to bear witness. And I have to state that the organisations that are here today to support this protest are Black Triangle, DPAC, Glasgow Against Maximus, and the Scottish Resistance. And there are also individuals that are here on their own volition to show comradeship and fraternity. And the bottom line is, Joe, you got it absolutely right. The fact is, we have to fight. We're having to fight for social justice. We're having to fight to get the 12 billion pounds worth of cuts removed.
to basically welfare should not be getting cut. Welfare should be given to the poorest and the most vulnerable and the sickest and the most disabled in our society. But they're having their money stolen.
Who was mentally ill, and because the work capability assessment drove him to such distress and despair, the man killed himself. So we're going to have the minute silence from now. Thanks very much for observing that minute's silence. Michael O'Sullivan is a man of 60 years of age who, through despair and through absolute grief, didn't know where his next money was coming from and committed suicide. The man was mentally ill, was not fit to work, and the orthopaedic surgeon from Atos decided that he was fit for work. The coroner's court last week, the coroner made the ruling that his suicide was directly caused by the work capability assessment. The fact that he was not fit to work was ignored by the Atos doctor, his psychiatrist, his GP. All the letters were completely ignored, and he was deemed fit to work. And the coroner's court, this is the first judicial ruling in the United Kingdom from the establishment itself, saying that the work capability assessment has to be changed because it will cause more people to take their own lives in future. That's what the coroner stated in her report. And also, we've got the United Nations Rapporteur for Disabled Rights coming over with a team of people from New York within the next 2 months to do an investigation of Maximus and Atos and the work capability assessment, and they are striking in the words that they have issued recently by saying that there is substantial evidence that disabled people are being discriminated against and are having their rights infringed greatly. And that says a lot coming from the United Nations, which never easily says that or never easily investigates these things. And that says a lot about the Nazi-type regime that exists inside Maximus, Atos, in that building across the road, because that's what they are. They are Nazi-like. The T-34 programme, where people took their own lives and were gassed because they were nothing more than disabled. Their crime was to be disabled. Their crime was to have learning difficulties, and they were gassed because of that. And that now disabled people are having their lives taken from them by suicide or because they're terminally ill, and that the distress is killing them because they've been taken off their benefits. The little bit of human dignity that they have, is an absolute disgrace that that's being allowed to happen.
Yeah, just to reiterate what was mentioned earlier about these actual work capability assessments and the hoops and 6-foot-high brick walls that disabled people are meant to be able to jump over to prove that, not just to get eligibility for benefit, to gain benefits, but to actually prove that they're disabled. I think it's moved on now. It's not just the fact of, it's not about benefits, it's about disability. And you have people actually in Cadogen Street in this building, and we're outside, and they're actually proving, they're having to prove that they're disabled. They're having to get a letter from their doctor. I saw one recently, and it just said arthritis and something disability. It was just 4 words on a bit of paper. And that is about as much as my friend's got to take to her work capability assessment. She has this bit of paper signed by his GP, who was good enough to sign it. He didn't have to do it. A lot of GPs now aren't doing benefit letters. They're not doing letters of support. My own GP doesn't do letters of support. Unless you've kept the paperwork or you've got an ongoing history of your disability, you know, you're going to find it very, very difficult to convince Maximus, Atos, whatever they call themselves, that you are a disabled person. But somebody mentioned earlier about this hypothetical box that we're always being asked to pick up when we go to a work capability assessment. I was advocating recently for a woman who has learning disabilities, and she was asked to pick up this imaginary box. It's not a real box, it's an imaginary box. You're asked at your medical or work capability assessment, could you pick up a box? And they actually have a dimension for the box. I don't know what it is. I don't know what weight the box is. But you're actually asked at your medical to pick up an imaginary box. Could you pick up this imaginary box? No. We would love it right now if somebody from inside Cadogen Street could bring out this imaginary box and let us study this imaginary box, just so we know what it looks like, so we can start telling people what this imaginary box looks like. She was also asked how far she could walk. 50 metres. I couldn't tell you what 50 metres is, but we got it down to roughly, it was the length of a double-decker bus, or a bus. And she was asked, you know, she only lives across the road from the shops, and she was asked, can you walk the length of like two or three buses? This is a lady who's learning disability. I had a anti-austerity sticker sitting next to the computer I was working on, and she didn't know what austerity meant, which is even more ironic. But I told her what austerity meant. So her work capability assessment questionnaire was basically based on hypothetical questions. If you know the length of a double-decker bus, could you walk the length of 3 double-decker buses? Can you pick up this imaginary box? Can you walk up these fictitious stairs? You know, the whole work capability assessment, I mean, we know it's a ruse. We know that already. We know it's a ruse to get people off benefits, to remove their entitlement to benefits. And the majority of these people that are having their money taken from them are disabled people. I mean, we know all that. We know it's a sham. We know that as healthcare professionals, you'd probably be better working on a farm, you guys, because I don't think you can tell one end of a horse from the other. But this work capability assessment questionnaire, face-to-face medical, it's got to stop because it's damaging people. Sean said earlier the amount of suicide, you know, we predicted this a year and a half ago. We knew that people were getting their money taken off them, and we could just about deal with that at the time. We could get help from Citizens Advice Scotland, we could get help from various charity groups. But the rope's getting tighter and tighter around our necks. I mean, I'm a disabled person as well. I'm not just a political activist. I'm a disabled person. That's what brought me out here in the first place. I'm affected by the work capability assessment. I'm affected by the government's welfare reforms. But the noose is getting tighter and tighter around our necks. It's getting harder and harder and harder for us to sort of justify our disabilities and to fight the system.
This is a Scottish resistance! Stand up for Scotland! Come and join us! While people have been taken off benefits and dying because of the decisions of the people in this building, while people are working for no wages in companies like Thailand, while our people are going to food banks because they can't afford to feed themselves. MPs in Westminster are being paid massive salaries. They don't even need to touch the salaries. Everything they get is paid on expenses. When they go up in the morning, they'll get 40 quid to get a breakfast, to dinner, to want a new suit. Everything is paid on expenses. We must get rid of this corrupt system by the Tories and the Red Tories. Stand up for Scotland. Come and
join the Scottish resistance. This country, and they're not making profits off the backs of the poor. Sheer exploitation. And also to folks here today, my trial starts on Monday. My trial starts at 10 a.m. on the 30th of October at Paisley Sheriff Court for breach of the peace for protesting against Atos as a sponsor for the Commonwealth Games. So I say to you, please come along to the trial on the 30th of October at 10 a.m. and show solidarity, because it's not just about me being in trial, it's about exposing the lies and the cheating and the fraud that goes with taking the poor off their benefits, and about giving that to the media on the 30th of October. Thank you for joining the protest today, comrades one and all.